Being from Essex, I'm got a reputation for being a bit of a lager drinker. And before I started drinking craft beer, that's all I used to drink. But in the last sort of 6 months, haven't really drank that much lager. We haven't had that much lager on the channel. We've been full of IPAs and pale ales and stouts and all kinds of weird and wonderful things. So this month, decided to do more lagers. We're going to start off with this one that I've heard so much about. This is Big Foam, but is it big in taste? Check out the review to find out. Welcome back to Rocker's Beer Review. Today we're going to be reviewing this beer called Big Foam. It's by Donzoko Brewing Company and it's what they call a rustic lager. So this is a craft lager. As I said in the intro, I used to drink just lager, and to be honest, I didn't used to experiment that much with lots of different types. But then I started going into craft beer, and then before I knew it, I'm drinking IPA all the time. New England IPAs, as everyone knows, is my favourite. And I thought, there's a lot of people that I suppose I've left behind a little bit. Some of my friends still are big lager drinkers, and they said, Rocker, you know what we need? We want some craft lagers to try. You know, we like pale ales and IPAs, but we still love lager, you know. Certainly those friends from Essex, because, you know, lager and Essex go together like, I don't know, strawberries and cream. So, Donzoko, Big Foam. This is dry, bready and citrus. Not normally the sort of things you'd have to describe a lager. And then when you read the back, it says Big Foam is a rustic country style lager with German Pilsner malt, locally grown spelt, finished with a large dose of Hallertau, Blanc and Astra hops for a peachy white wine finish. We're going even further away from what I would call a traditional lager. It's fermented cold, naturally acidified and naturally carbonated. Pour hard. Bask in the Big Foam. So let's make a real mess of this pour and pour it hard and get all foam and no beer. I'm not sure how I'm gonna tilt the glass a little bit to begin with, and then I'm gonna pour hard when we get halfway through and see how we get on. There we go. Let's get that big foam there. Oh, yep. There. That is a big foam. 4 fingers of white fluffy head. And to be honest, you know, for a lager, it looks more like an IPA. You've got a hazy sort of yellowy orange, carbonation moving up quite quickly. Yeah, I mean, so far, this doesn't look like a lager. I mean, a lot of lagers, I mean, this is unfiltered, but a lot of lagers, you'd expect to be able to see your face through it, but this one you can't. Let's see what the aromas are like. It does smell very much like a lager, very much like a German Pilsner. You've got that real sort of bready maltiness on the nose, with a little hint of citrus, but not much. I'm getting a lot of bready notes in here. I think it's gonna take me back to those beer halls of Munich. But let's see what it's like, shall we? Cheers, everyone. Yeah, very much like a continental type of lager. What's quite strange is it's so light. You know, usually with a lager, you expect a little bit of carbonation there. Can be quite fizzy, you know, a lot of lager, but it doesn't taste that fizzy. There is carbonation in there and body, but it's quite light. Let's go in again. It's as far removed as your Fosters and Carlins as you can get. There's so much flavour in this lager. There's big bready sort of notes in there, and quite low bitterness. There's sometimes with some German sort of style pilsners, you get that nice crisp, little bit of citrus, maybe bready maltiness, and then it leaves a sort of bitterness in your mouth. But this doesn't really have that, which I think is great. It means it's really, really smashable. It's quite amazing because a lot of lagers, when you drink lager, when you drink it, you don't really get much aroma. But with this one, as soon as I pour it to my mouth and start drinking it, I get this overwhelming breadiness, you know. It's almost like a sort of a dumpling type of breadiness. And that, I wouldn't say the flavour is overly bready, but there's definitely that aroma. It's just a really nice, crisp lager, but with a little bit more body and a little bit more flavour. It says citrus. I wouldn't say it was overly lemony or limey. And in fact, I've had lagers that have got a lot more sort of sweetness and a lemon sort of flavour to it, but this hasn't. There's not. I wouldn't say it was very sweet. It's a cracking lager, though. It really is. I mean, it's unlike any lager I've tasted before. You drink it, you know it's lager because of that maltiness that's very sort of, you know, associated with lager. But there's a sort of a light, easy drinkiness about it that reminds me of an IPA in terms of its body. I'm getting a slight, I mean, it's very dry. It's a very dry lager, which is great because, you know, that's what you want in a lager. But what I like about it more than anything is that you're not getting that sort of, that bitterness is not creeping in, that sort of, that dryness that goes so dry that, you know, it almost coats the back of your throat. It doesn't do that. And that makes it really easy to drink. It's a shame that the big foam is not as big as it was. But it's amazing to look at. As a lager, I don't think I've seen a lager that sort of hazy. But then you talk about something like a wheat beer, you know, which I suppose you can class as a lager. You know, those sort of beers which have a sort of, and then they have that sort of bready flavour, that wheat is really big. And you do get a slight haze in it. But you don't, but the flavour, even though it looks like those sort of beers, it doesn't taste like them. It's a cracking lager. And it reminds me that I don't drink enough lagers on this channel. Great beer. Let's get some reviews and let's get some scores. Okay, the scores are in for Donzoko Big Foam. This is a rustic lager coming in at 5%, and it's also, which I never mentioned, it's in a big 500ml can. That's great. First things first, aroma. So usually when we talk about lagers and we talk about aromas, it's like, yeah, there's a slight maltiness, biscuity maybe, you know, but aromas are not big. But with this one, that breadiness about it, and then there's that, you can almost smell the malts and the hops that are going into this. I mean, I'm going to say it smells very rustic, which is obviously what it's called, a rustic lager. But it's got, for a lager, it's got a lot more aroma than you would expect. And so on that basis, I'm giving it, well, I've written down a score here, but I'm going to increase it because I think for a lager, it needs to go up a bit. So I'm giving it a 14 for aroma. Appearance-wise, well, when you look at lagers, you expect a sort of golden, slightly sort of orangey sort of colour. But this looks like a pale ale or an IPA. It's sort of yellowy, hazy sort of colour. It's a bit disappointing that it's not the big foam is no more. So the head's a little bit disappointing. But that's the thing, because the carbonation is quite low for a lager. And that's why I think, you know, the head sort of goes down and it's very much like a sort of pale ale IPA. But the appearance-wise for a lager, I think it's pretty good. Nice and yellow. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. And that's a bit higher just because of the sort of beer that we're drinking. Flavour-wise, I'm going to go in again. There's so much more to this lager than you normally get. The mouthfeel is really great. It's not fizzy like a lot of lagers can be. Certainly your sort of standard off the shelf sort of stuff. And the bodies, there's a lot more citrusy sort of flavour. I noticed on the can because it says a peachy white wine finish. And I suppose there is a little bit of Chardonnay flavour in there. Just subtle though, quite subtle. Subtle so it tastes a bit different, but not that dominant in the fact that you think, oh, this tastes a bit like wine. You still know you're drinking lager. The thing is with this, and I'm comparing this with a lot of other lagers, it's just got so much more body and flavour to it. And what's quite good about it, sometimes you get a lot of those flavours, especially when there's those sort of German Pilsners. But for me, a lot of those German Pilsners, they go a little bit too far, and the bitterness and the dryness is so much, it sucks the moisture out of your mouth, and it leaves a coating. But this is not like that at all. But there's a lot of flavour, and I'm giving it 35 because for a lager, I think it's tremendous. Yeah, it's probably one of my favourite lagers. What it doesn't have, when I think of my favourite Aldi project Pilsner that they do, is that has a little bit more sweetness, and this doesn't have the sweetness, but it's just perfectly balanced. 35 for flavour. Value for money. Well, it's in a big 500ml can, so that gets an extra point. I probably paid just under a £5. And I suppose when you think about lager, that's quite expensive. So for value-wise, yeah, I'm still giving it 8 out of 10 because I think it's a great lager. There's a lot of flavours, a lot going on in this. And then my overall experience, well, this is a cracking beer. It's percentage-wise, it's 5%, spot on. You know it's a premium lager. The body's nice, the flavour's nice, and it makes me realise that, I suppose after, over the last few months, I've drank lagers. I've had a few, lagers that's sitting around, or people have gone around other people's houses, they've had lager, you've had him, and I just felt, it's a little bit lacking in flavour because I'm so used to those big, juicy, fruity IPAs. But this has brought me back to realise that, lagers have got their place within the craft beer sort of spectrum. And there's a lot of craft beer lagers that are much better than your sort of Stellas, your Peronis, and all the sort of cheap supermarket equivalents of those. This takes lager to another level. This makes you think, well, actually, lager is not just fizzy alcohol that you just drink because it's like a lemonade but alcoholic. There's a lot going on in this, a lot of flavour. So my overall experience, I'm giving it 15 because I think it's a really cracking beer. I could just drink a few of these. And it's a big can. I thought I was going to sit and enjoy this, but it's nearly finished through this review. So we top those scores up. We get an 81. I'm just going to go through it, make sure that the score is right. That's 50, 64, 73, 81. Yeah, it's 81 out of 100. So it's an Iron Maiden. It's a big foam and it's a big heavy metal band. It's the heaviest of heavy metal. It's a great beer. So if you think that, you're into craft beer, but I don't know whether what my experience is typical. I'm sure there's people that used to drink a lot of bitters and ales, and then they went into more sort of your more new craft beers, your IPAs and your New England IPAs, your double IPAs, triple IPAs, and all the rest. And you probably left those sort of old other beers behind. But this is Big Foam. This is by Donzoko, and it's definitely one of the best lagers that you can buy, certainly within that craft beer sort of arena. So give it a try if you see it. If you see it in bottle shops, give it a try. We've got a few more lagers coming up for the channel. We've got a rice lager, which is a bit weird. And then we've also got a Cloudwater, which, are known for their IPAs and their double IPAs. They've got a lager, which is something a little bit different as well. So more lagers this month. and I'm sure we're going to do more lagers in other months. There's a lot of good beer out there, so keep drinking it and keep on rocking.